watching. I'm Craig Hohenberger with the ActionCOACH Go Big region here in the Midwest of the United States. And I have the pleasure today of interviewing one of our amazing franchise partners, Iain MacFarlane, in Madison, Wisconsin. But as soon as you hear his voice, you'll realize he's not from Madison, Wisconsin. So Iain, why don't you just share a little bit about yourself, your background, what did you do prior to ActionCOACH, how long have you been with ActionCOACH, and why did you decide to get into this business?
Okay, good. Thanks, Craig. Looking forward to it. I'll start with the last question you asked first. This is my 17th year with Action. So that's
Cheers.
Yeah, right. But that's not the matter of how many years I've spent. It's really why did I join and why am I still with Action? I think it's probably the important thing. So very briefly, obviously, as you mentioned, the accent, grew up in Australia in the outback, ended up doing my education in Sydney all the way through university, ended up with a fellowship to do postgraduate research in the States. I spent 4 years in the States, and I've been fortunate. I went to the East-West Center, one of the first students there, which is in Hawaii, which is now the world's leading authority on the Pacific Asian region. Went to Columbia University, and I've been to Harvard Business School. So I've had a fairly strong academic background here. But I did got married and returned to Australia. And I went back with a position. I'd been recruited by H.J. Heinz, the food company, to go back. I think I was about 27 at the time, and as general manager of marketing and business development for Heinz Australia, which was an incredible experience. We went through a lot of growth. And after probably about 7 years there, I got approached by two young guys that I had been using as one of my ad agencies. And they asked whether I'd be interested in moving back to Sydney, where I was from, because Heinz was in Melbourne, to start a new ad agency. So I thought about it and said, okay. So I moved to Sydney. We became the fastest growing ad agency in Australia. And as a consequence of that, got approached by 5 US ad agencies, big ones, and we decided to sell them. We sold to Doyle, Dane Bernbach in New York City. Part of the deal was I'd moved to New York. So that's what brought me to the States on a permanent basis, was January of 1978. My wife was American. Our kids were joint citizens, so it was an easy move to New York. So from there, I ended up working for Doyle, Dane Bernbach, headed up Polaroid advertising worldwide for 3 years. And then I launched the video game industry in 1981 for Atari. So I did all the advertising worldwide to launch the in-home video game industry, which was always exciting.
The original Pong with the Pong.
Well, yeah, Pong was there, but that was really the first one we really launched, which really took off, was Space Invaders.
Ah, yes, I used to play a lot of that when I was younger. Yep.
Right. So you're right of that age, right? Yeah. So I spent 3 years launching the video game industry worldwide. Then in '85, got recruited by venture capitalists in New York City to turn around a computer software company. Decided, take on that challenge. Was interesting because the situation, and I could tell you the whole marketing, whole business side of it, but the real story was I came to the conclusion that our competition, if you think of 1985, desktop computers in the corporate world, where it was only just beginning, and Ashton Tate with DBase 2, they were our main competitor and have been in the market 2 years longer. When I went out and took over the job for our company, I discovered the difference was they had built an IT infrastructure to be a trainer and support companies. We did not. And in those days, it wasn't the product, even though ours was better. It was a whole structure of how they were supported. So anyhow, closed. We sold the company. Instead of spending, I needed to spend 10 million to really become competitive. And the VC said, no, we've already spent 10, so sell the company. So a year later, I sold to CompuWare in Detroit. Then I got recruited to Knoxville, Tennessee, 10 years in New York, to Knoxville, Tennessee. Down there, I got recruited by venture capitalists to turn around a biotech company. So over the next 5 years, took it from 2 million of revenue, 2.5 million of cash burn, and built it to 114 million and 7.5 million pre-tax. So we decided to sell. Then I got recruited by a lady, not to run her business, but to write a business plan. She was getting a little over 300,000 in revenue, but she had a brilliant product for skincare, and it outperformed all J&J products. And friends, but she only sold into the medical community. Friends said, you need to go into the mass market. So she recruited me to write the business plan and to help her raise the funding to be able to do that, which I did. We narrowed it down to 3 final investors. We had the meeting with them. This was now March of 1994. And they said, Rashida, you're brilliant, fabulous product, but you don't know how to run the company. We'll only invest if Iain runs it. And she said, yes, right now, we'll do it. So I came on as chairman and CEO, and she took the title president. We ended up over time, I stayed for 4 years because I got recruited again by to turn another company around. And I told her, if I get a big offer, I'll make sure that you're all set, everything's good. So and I stayed on the board, and we grew that to 14 million and sold it for 21 million. And then, so the job I got recruited for a turnaround was in Minneapolis, which was the Star Tribune company. It was a public company, the newspaper. And they had 3 other divisions. I was recruited to do a turnaround of their book publishing. And over the next 2 years, turned it around. And to my surprise and the CEO's surprise, the family ownership decided to sell the company. It was a 100-year-old company. It had 3 generations. The younger generation said, we want our money out and not monthly cash flow. So we ended up selling that company. Then I got recruited to, so that took me through 1999, the end of 99. The first week of January of 2000, I got a phone call from a lady by the name of Pleasant Rowland, the founder and owner of American Girl. And
I've spent a lot of money there through the years.
I bet you have.
When they were younger. Now,
yeah.
Now they're all sitting in storage in our house for the grandbabies coming soon.
Keep them. They'll be worth a lot more later on. Just keep them. So anyhow, she invited me to come down to Madison, and I came down. We spent from 8 a.m. to 3. She's a genius, brilliant. We hit it off well. And she said, am I interested in the position as her number 2 to help her grow the vision? And I said, yeah, I'm interested. She said, well, like me and every other one of our 600 employees, you have to take an hour test. She said, after you have the test, I'll have someone take you back to the airport to go back to Minneapolis. Took the test, got home that night. Was the first Friday night in January 2000. On the fax machine was a letter of offer. I called her on Monday and said, let's go. So I moved. I came down and commuted with Pleasant Company.
So that's what got you down in the
That's what brought me to Madison, was her number 2 to help her grow the vision of American Girl. So I took it international to set up the English Girl, the German Girl, and the French Girl. So that was our international launch plan. We went retail into Michigan, in Michigan Avenue, I think in Chicago, went retail. I also took over all the book publishing because we had a publishing group for the books, magazines, and newsletters. But now that she had sold to Mattel, that's before I joined, I said, why don't we go to Mattel, to the CEO and say, look, we've got a publishing group. Why don't we take over the Mattel brands and create books around them? And he said, fine. So did that. So I started building up Barbie books and Fisher Price and Hot Wheels and Matchbooks. So everything went great, except Mattel had financial problems. This was 2001. And they decided that even though we were very profitable, because of all the growth that I was leading, we were spending a lot of cash. So we were negative cash, even though we were very profitable operationally. And because Mattel was facing Chapter 11, he ended up not renewing Pleasant's contract. She left, called me the next day and said, I would need you to shut down the international operation. I'm going to take over the brands for publishing instead of you building a publishing house because you're costing a lot of capital. what we're going to do is I will license those brands to other publishing houses, meaning no cost, and I get a royalty stream. And thirdly, go and cancel the space we'd contracted in Rockefeller Center for our second store. He said, cancel the contract. I said, I totally understand. I'll do it. And then I move on. So I had one more before Action, and that was I was immediately recruited to Columbus, Ohio, headquartered in Columbus, a manufacturing plant in Belpre. The founder had, the bank that funded the building, the manufacturing, in 91, in 97, she went Chapter 11. The bank converted their mortgage debt into equity control, let her keep running it. She dropped dead at the end of 99. So they put two bankers in to run their business, and bankers know finance, but they don't know how to run a business. So they ran it into the ground, and I got recruited to see if I was do a turnaround. I said on two conditions. One, employ me as a consultant for 2 months. And then if I consider that I would have a solution, I'll present the solution to you. If you agree to it, my second contract, second part of the agreement is you'll provide me a condo and a car in Columbus, and I'll commute from Madison, because we didn't want to leave Madison. And that's, I commuted for 2 years to Columbus. It was a unionized factory. I did a deal with the unions that if I have to shut it down, these are the terms. I knew I was going to have to shut it down because all their competition moved to China. And we were a unionized factory in Ohio. So as a consequence of that, I gave them 6 months to get the margins up from 32% to 50%. I knew they couldn't, so I immediately had consultants working for me to find the manufacturing opportunity in China. As a consequence, we got it to 37%, as I'd already signed the agreement as to what terms we'd give them if we had to shut it down. That's what happened, moved production to China. And that took me through, so we did that in beginning of 2003. By the end of July 2003, this is the important thing about Action. One of my sons and his wife and then 18-month-old grandson moved to Madison for Rob to do his 4-year residency at the University of Wisconsin Hospital. So, and that he came in July of 2003. By later that year, I said, this is ridiculous. You know, I'm flying back and forth and spending all the time there. And here I got my family for 4 years. So I gave my notice at Christmas. I turned the business around, got it going. So then in January of 2004, I thought, well, I need to do something, but I need to control my destiny, how much time and what I do, something I love. I said, well, be a consultant. So in January, I started writing a business plan to be a consultant. I went on the internet looking for information, came across this thing called business coaching. I didn't know what it was. So I said, well, I'll give them a call. So I called and spoke to then the regional ML, who was out of Minneapolis, that covered Wisconsin. And we had a good conversation. So he and his wife came down to Madison, met with myself and my wife, and they explained to me really what coaching. And I said, my goodness, that's much more aligned to the way I ran all my companies. I ran it by setting the goals, setting the vision, and then pulling the team together and have them execute. As distinct from consulting, you've got to come in, you've got to do it every so many months. You've got to go find another client, and you've got to tell them what to do. And I didn't want to be that. So I came to the conclusion, Action sounds much more who I am. So I then had to go up to Minneapolis, and Madge came up with me, and I had to take all the various tests and DISC and all that stuff. And then they put me through the grill, challenged me on why would I want to do this? And I said, for personal reasons. It'll allow me to choose who I work with people that are motivated to want to grow and to do better, and that I can do it on an ongoing basis, not as a project. So based on that, I went ahead and I did. And I said, one more condition. This was the end of February 2004. I said, if you let me go to the annual North American conference in Vegas in the first week of March of 2004, I will guarantee you I will make my decision there at the conference. So I did. I went to the conference, and I was overwhelmed by the attitude, the spirit. I thought Brad did a brilliant job. I thought the whole concept of what they were talking about around coaching and helping people and coaching there on an ongoing basis was perfect. So I signed, and that's what began. So that was the reason. So the reason was very much an emotional. It drew upon my business background. It drew upon the style that I ran companies, but now I knew I could translate it to multi-owners and do it in a way in which I wanted to keep them long-term and not keep changing, because I didn't want to have to spend a lot of time prospecting. I knew I had to do it initially, but I didn't want to have a life where I had to spend a lot of time prospecting. I wanted to find the right clients, get them, and have a long-term philosophy and explain to them how I was going to. My statement was, I will work with you to help you grow your business to the point that you can exit with your wealth for the rest of your life. That was my positioning.
That's awesome, Iain. And how old were you then? And how old are you
64.
now?
64 then. I'm 80 now.
Yeah. So you were just starting the last phase of your professional career.
Well, I knew that I needed to do something forever. I have to do something. I need to be productive. I love working with people. I love helping people. So I knew I had to have that as an outlet for my own satisfaction. But I had to do it now at that age. You're right, it was a new age. I had to do it where I controlled how much time that I would spend in doing that. It wasn't that I was trying to build a revenue source specifically for our future life. That wasn't my intent. It was really to work with people motivated, to be willing to work with me, for me to work with them for the long term, to help them grow their personal wealth over time.
That's fantastic. And what kinds of clients have you worked with through the years, Iain? And you keep clients for a very long time. So what's a typical length of an engagement for you?
Probably overall, they've averaged close on 10 years. The clients, in fact, a number of them we've already sold. And I'm at a stage right now where, I'm down to only a few clients, and of that, 3 of them, we've been approached by outsiders wanting to buy their company. So I'm now facilitating the potential sale of 3 clients, and they will make enough money, they won't work again in the rest of their lives.
Yeah, what a cool opportunity. Leverage all your background, all your skills, be part of an amazing culture. Speaking of, talk about your experience with the intellectual property of ActionCOACH and the training and the systems and the team and the community and the culture and the sheer caliber of people that we get to call colleagues.
I think it's fundamental. As I say, I was influenced at the very beginning at that conference. I just saw that is the sort of culture. Everyone was positive. Everyone was energetic. Brad was on his best. So I knew that. But then the other thing was I had to do my 10-day training. And I went to the 10-day training. Well, what am I going to learn, really, with all that experience? That was the best 10 days of learning I've had in my whole life. Because it wasn't just the learning, it was the interacting, it was the emotional side, it was understanding so much about how you can contribute to others. Oh, I should mention one other thing, because it was very critical in my decision in March, and only became clear to me when I was at the conference, and that was world abundance through business re-education. To me, that was the absolute key factor. Said, that's what I want to be part of. And when I went to the 10-day training, of course, that was always the philosophy. The other people who were there were bright people. So, and saying, gee, they're selecting, really good people. We work hard. I don't know what it is today. I haven't been to a session. I did some global training myself about 12, 13 years ago, but I haven't done it since. But back in those days, we went till midnight, 1 a.m., sometimes 2 in the morning. And the other thing was a great experience was the very last day when we went into Vegas, came back in the bus, and everyone was so impacted by that. We didn't finish till 3 a.m. in that final whiffle, sitting in the bus. So I knew that it was a culture of involvement, of emotion, as well as the skills and the techniques. So yeah, it reinforced the fact that, yeah, it was something which I would be very comfortable in. And, you know, I've worked with all my clients. You know, I still use a lot of the principles. I've added some of my own because I've taken, you know, I've been with them so long. I've added, particularly when we're sort of thinking about, okay, we need to start preparing, how do we structure the company so we can sell it? So then I'm bringing a lot more other skills, which are probably a little outside of action, but no, I follow the system. And, and that was so impactful. Here am I with a hell of, you know, pretty wide, broad background of success in business, and follow the system was the message in training. And it was absolutely true. Yeah, follow the system.
Yeah. I know, coming from my background, obviously I escaped my corporate journey at a much younger age than you did. Yeah. I joined ActionCOACH in my early 30s, but I remember once I really started to understand the power of the system, I went, wow, because I was involved in a lot of mergers and acquisitions and turnarounds in my corporate life as well, and all the travel that came with that. But I remember thinking, gosh, if we would have had this package while we were doing those projects, they would have been done even more effectively.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one other thing in the action system, which I think is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful tool for my being successful with my clients, and that was the WIFL, which I learned in training. And I make sure I do a WIFL with everyone at the beginning of every single session, because I found, and I'm you know, sort of giving you a broad feel. I believe in 50%, maybe even higher. When we do the WIFL at the beginning of a session every week, something else has come up that's become more important than what we were going to do in that session. So, you know, it's really having their input. The WIFL brings out what their needs are, where their mind is, what they're looking for, and what are the issues that they're dealing with, which may not even be something to do with business. It may be an issue in the WIFL that's outside of it. So we deal with that. So it means that I'm dealing with their needs every single time I have a coaching session.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And speaking of stuff outside of business, share the story about a certain client of yours who asked you for a really big favor at one point. Didn't she ask you to get ordained so that you could
yeah, right.
person to officiate her wedding? That's how important the relationship is.
Yeah, it was. He started off with 2005, I think, one martial arts school. We grew it to 4. He became quite successful, but we had a very close relationship. And by the way, all of my clients knew my wife very well. She was part of it, and they loved talking with. I might have a 1-hour session here in my office, and I finish it. Finish that session, I got the next person coming in. By the time we finished that hour session, the first one's still talking with my wife. So we were sort of a team in that area. So anyhow, Jason, after a session, said he'd like to talk about something personal. He said he and his fiance had discussed, would I be willing to marry them? And I'm saying, oh my God, talk about out of your comfort zone. So I said, yeah, I'd love to do it. So I actually went and got ordained and conducted their wedding.
How amazing is that? And,
yeah. But now, see, that's almost like a WIFL, right? What's on your mind?
Yeah.
Right? What's on your mind? And there's some way that I can help with whatever the issue is at the time. Yeah. But I always say that I always try to have my clients, their needs are way more important than my needs.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's just like Zig Ziglar always said, if you help enough other people get what they want in life, you'll get what you want in life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what this is all about. So what do you think differentiates ActionCOACH? Because like you said, when you first started, like it was for me, I never heard of business coaching as a profession, but it's really grown a lot in large part because of what ActionCOACH has done around the world. But what do you think differentiates ActionCOACH, Iain, from all the other people out there in our industry?
I think it's the attitude and the vision of what Action can do. And it does go back to World Abundance through Business Re-Educate. With that as a focus, And if we all, in particular myself, if I'm there to help people grow their business, which I say, so my positioning when I talk to people up front was, I want to help you grow your business successfully to the point that you can exit and create your wealth for your retirement. So, and that's, that's helping the world, world abundance through my business re-education. I'm helping world abundance. Now, it's through individuals as such, but that's creating world abundance. I believe that is a focal point as to what the vision of the business is. I think Brad has grown dramatically in the time that I've known him, and I know it was a brilliant vision, truly, and that captured my attention. But I think he's grown dramatically to help us with that vision to grow internationally very successfully.
Yeah, I totally agree. The whole organization has really matured a lot since those days.
Yep.
It's pretty cool to see,
to
be a part of. So what's a day in the life look like for you?
A little bit different now.
And maybe when you first started versus now. Yeah.
When I first started, I knew I had to work really hard, long days for a period of time until I had to learn how to coach. I also knew I was not known in Madison at the time because when I worked for Pleasant, I was traveling to Europe and everything. So I wasn't known in the 4 years I'd been there. So I wasn't known. I knew that I had to learn how to prospect. I decided I'd have to work very hard. So I immediately said, I'm going to take as many clients as I can. I don't care whether I make any money at them or not. I've got to, I gave myself 1 year. I'd take on as many clients as possible, learn how to prospect, learn how to close, learn how to coach. So I wasn't concerned about turnover at all. But I did come to the conclusion, I did do advertising, I did full page ads in the business publications, some in the newspaper. So that'll get, start to get the name out. But I learned pretty quickly that for the type of customer I was looking for, which would tend to be a little bit bigger and larger, that was my intent, than maybe what the majority of Action clients are. I said, well, I need to do host spends. And so the first one I started with was the local newspaper. It's was basically the sole newspaper. I got introduced to the publisher, and I explained to him. I said, "Look, if you're willing to promote through your salespeople the fact that I'll put on this workshop with my background, I can be very helpful to." So he did. So he went out, and we used their facilities, their conference room, or more than conference room, it was a presentation room. They paid for the drink and the food and everything. All I had to do was show up and do my presentation. We got 135 at the first session. They were overwhelmed that we got those people interested. So 2 months later, we did another one, got 140 at the second one. I had so many people to follow up on that. That was fantastic. However, I also joined the local chamber, and the local chamber had a very large annual golf event. They had 27 holes and they had 200 players, and followed up by dinner. So I said, okay, I volunteered to be chairman of the sponsorship committee. So I could now call whoever I wanted to call on behalf of the chamber, and got through the gatekeeper. I got through the gatekeeper. Yeah, I got through the gatekeeper, right? So I could introduce myself and that. So I got a number of clients from that as well. So I also got the 2 biggest banks in Madison. Once I'd proven how I could make that work, I got the 2 biggest banks to do host spends with me as well. So that sort of all happened in the first year. So I'd learned how to, I started to learn how to coach. I'd learned how to, how not to make the same mistake again. I'd learned how to prospect the right type of clients. So in my second year, I then narrowed it down to larger clients and those that I felt my background could be attractive to them. And I happen to say I was Coach of the Year my second year in Action, North America. So I'd made it work by the second year, but I had to work damn hard that first year to do it. But I committed to that because I said, I have to learn. I have to learn how to do all those things to do them well. But it clicked.
Yeah, you learned how to coach the clients. You learned how to bring on clients. You learned what kinds of clients you personally wanted to work with.
Correct. Yep.
All that.
So it took me a year to learn, but I gave myself that year, and it just all clicked. And so the next year I was getting the right clients and the larger clients. And so then my goal was to keep the right clients as long as I could. So I wanted client retention. And so my focus after the first 3 years was client retention, because now if I've got the right clients, I know how to coach them. I know, how to find them, close them, coach them. Now I don't want turnover. I want to keep the clients and keep growing them rather than chasing new clients. So my whole focus on my coaching was to work with them on retaining them. And as I say, I think one of, if not the most important tool was the Wiffle, because it showed my interest was in them. Every session we started, it showed my interest was in them.
Yeah, and that's what it has to be. It's all about helping them.
Yeah,
and simple. Yep.
And
so how has the pandemic affected your business at all, Iain? If at all?
It hasn't impacted me personally, because I've not been in a mode for the last few years to go out chasing new clients. My goal was to keep the current clients, help them keep growing, help them create their wealth. So it hasn't impacted me to any extent, because I haven't been out in the marketplace looking for new clients.
Were you already working with your clients in a virtual environment like we are now? Or were you meeting them face to face and that just shifted to virtual?
Face to face. And that was important to me. They were all, I did have 3 clients in Florida. And that's because I also, in the early days, I also coached other coaches. And so I had coached in different parts of the country. And I had 2 coaches down in Florida. And they brought me in to work with them on a 50-50 basis in coaching clients that were way, way beyond what their capabilities were. And I can honestly say both those 2 coaches have reached the Pinnacle and Action Awards. So I was pleased about that. So I've kept contact in Florida, but no, it really hasn't. Although I do have to say, I have honestly said that the Zoom and the various means is pretty effective. The only area that I keep warning myself is I still have to find a way to keep the personal contact in some way. Now, I haven't been able to go out and do much. I've had them come here occasionally, but not too often, because I don't want to put them at risk. So no, I would say that the technology has been very helpful. However, my own personal warning is don't let that get in the road of your personal relationships. As soon as we start moving out of this, I'll be right back into the personal contact as well. Now, I can balance it now. See, I can balance it and be effective both ways, balancing the effectiveness of the electronic tool, at the same time still retain the balance of the relationship side of who I'm working with.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a cool blessing in that regard.
Yeah,
I think a lot more people are comfortable doing Zoom meetings now than they used to be.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about kids in school, kids in college.
Me as well.
They're missing a lot when they're not in personal contact. I mean, I got one grandson that started college this year. He had a dorm all set up and everything. Nothing. A whole year now is.
Yeah, they're losing a lot of skills that they would otherwise get.
Yeah.
In that experience. Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's symptomatic of almost everything that we are going to lose some. We have to counterbalance. How else do we maximize the technology, but keep an awareness that we have to go out of our way to retain the personal side of the relationship as well, but the personal contact.
So how has being a part of ActionCOACH, how have you seen this impact you personally beyond pure business, as well as your clients on a personal level? Because what we see all the time is that this makes me a better human being. This makes me a better dad, a better spouse, a better father.
Yeah, no question. it's been phenomenal. I honestly believe I've had a willingness to accept and adapt, that I had areas that I'm finding I can grow in, continue to grow, and love doing it. All of the reading that we do, all of the conferences we go to. I think the conferences are, I'm sorry about this year, but I think the conferences have helped me grow personally and interact, because the people who become coaches, they're bright people. They're energetic people. They're positive people. That rubs off across everyone. So it rubs off on me. So no, I would say, oh, well, I do know. I'll say it aloud. If I could have had this experience before I went to the corporate world, I would have done a hell of a much better job myself in being a CEO of companies. I did pretty well, but I could have done a lot better if I'd had the last 17 years of experience. I could have done a much better job in the corporate world myself.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that as well. So Iain, what advice would you give somebody who's brand new in Action Coach? They just started, they're a young coach in the sense of tenure, not necessarily age, but what advice would you give a brand new Action Coach just starting out?
Yeah, I think one of the things is to hook up with some other coaches, even fairly new ones, so you go through some of the experiences together. When I started here, I was the coach here, and we had Jim Peltzwitz in Milwaukee. He and I went, either he came here or I went there, the first Monday of every month. And the two of us spent all day. What were you learning? What could we help one another with? And then Jim's brother came on the next year, and he came part of that. So, I've worked with others. I had my own coach. So I think it's a matter of being willing to reach out in the early days of it to learn from others that have been through it and be open to sharing.
Yeah, and you just mentioned having your own coach. I see that as being a real consistent thing.
Yeah.
Is those that get their own coach, like I've got 4 different coaches I work with on various things.
Yep.
And one's my generalist business coach, a la from an Action Coach sense, and then I've got some specialist coaches in certain areas. And I see that in the top franchise partners around the world, that they all have coaches.
Yeah. And I say that, as well as find a few other coaches themselves and develop personal relationships as coach to coach, so that you're bringing, at a coaching level, what am I learning? What am I struggling with? And work some of those things out with other coaches as well.
That's awesome. What advice would you give somebody who's considering Action Coach as a next step in their career?
I would say it all boils down to, why do they want to do it? What is their motivation? It's got to be more than just it's an income source. It's got to be something I would love doing. I want to help people. I'm willing to grow myself. I want to keep challenging myself to do more, to do better. So I honestly think that's really the key factor, being willing to say, I want to grow, I want to learn, so that I can help other people. And that's been my greatest satisfaction, to see so many of my clients become successful to the point of being able to sell and get out of their businesses. It's incredibly exciting.
Yeah, it really is. And here you are now in your 80s, and you're still going strong.
Still love it. Still love it.
Maybe a different format than it was when you first started a little bit.
It is. But that's what life's all about.
Yeah.
It's a matter of adapting, because society changes. I have to make sure that I'm consistent with the changes in society. Business principles change. There are fundamentals, but I still think like today, how do you deal with business where you don't have the contact? You have to learn another way to be successful in business. For example, one of my retail clients, he had to do something never done before, and that was to be able to go online with his website, take orders, fulfill them, and deliver at the curbside. Now, he had to look how to train his own staff on how to do it. There was extra steps they had to take, but he's had his best year ever.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you know what? At the end of the day, this may turn out to be a phenomenal thing for him because he learned how to pivot and quickly make adjustments and do all that stuff. It'll probably benefit him for many, many years to come.
Well, he doesn't quite need that last years to come because he's just turned 68, and we've been approached by 2 out-of-state large retailers that want to buy his company. So Wednesday this week, I'm facilitating the meeting of one of those from out of state, flying in on a private jet, and going to be here from 11 to 4. We've got a conference room at the airport, and I'm facilitating that. So this will be his exit path. And we've got two live candidates from out of state.
Very cool. And
yeah.
And I'll tell you what, to be able to have his best year ever in the midst of a COVID pandemic,
yeah,
in that kind of an industry, what did that do to his valuation compared to?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the reason why we're being approached by out-of-state companies that want to get into. Madison is an attractive market. It is a growth market, even with all of this going on. So a lot of companies in different fields are looking at Madison as a potential market to move into, to get into Wisconsin.
Fantastic. Anything else you'd want to share, Iain?
No, the only thing is I say you have to make your own personal commitment. You have to be willing to work hard. You've got to have an open mind. You've got to be willing to learn. You've got to be willing to interact with other coaches and the system. And I feel if you do that, it gives you a chance to become a great coach. And once you're a great coach, you're going to help other people. And that was my goal. And I hope that's the goal of other coaches.
Yeah, it's I hope so as well. And you hit it right on the head. The reason why you do this has to be far more than just income. If it's just income, yep. If it's about making a difference and helping other people and growing yourself professionally and helping other people grow professionally.
Mm-hmm. And the self-satisfaction of achieving that is beyond anything else in my business career.
Yeah. So this has really helped you fulfill your purpose and your passion on this earth.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, fantastic, Iain. It is a pleasure to know you. It's a pleasure to have you as a colleague. Yeah. And yeah, hopefully we're still doing business for 10, 15, 20 more years.
I hope so.
There's a lot of people that need your wisdom. And a lot
yeah, well, one of the key factors, again, is, on the personal side, is health. So I'm very careful about my health, what I eat, I work out. So I know I have to keep my own self. As I get older, I've got to put a little bit more effort into those aspects to maintaining my own. Emotionally, I'll always be committed, but I've got to also make sure the physical side is there too.
Yeah, exactly. Now are you coming to Hilton Head?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that'll be the first trip I've made since November of last year.
Oh my gosh, I can't.
Yeah, I've already booked and everything, and I got the ticket booked. But I do know it may be up to the last minute, depending upon things that happen in the next 4 weeks. But yeah, I'm planning to be there.
Good. That'll be awesome, getting people back together.
Yeah.
In person, even though some of the presenters are still going to be virtual, but
yeah,
it's going to be an awesome time.
Yeah, I'll be down there. I'm going to be staying before and after, so that I can do a lot of walking on the beach and just get out in fresh air and
sun, yeah.
Yeah, and I still got friends. I got a number of friends in Hilton Head, and they said they'll probably come and stay at the hotel for a couple of nights after the conference is over, so that they'll spend some time with friends down there.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Annette and I, by the way, for the 10-day training, we are actually bringing people in, even though the 10-day right now, because of COVID, has to be virtual because Vegas is largely shut down.
Yeah.
We're bringing them into our training room here in our office.
Oh, wow.
And then we're putting it up on the big screen.
Yeah.
But they'll get some personal live interaction with other people in a room with them and us coming out and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think great that you're doing that, because I do say that the personal interaction I had at that stage, where I had to, in training and learning others and going through, everyone sort of helping and supporting as you got pushed to your limit on many things. I do think that's an important part, is the personal interaction and supporting one another.
Yeah, I think so too. And they'll be able to go back to Vegas live once Vegas is reopened.
Yep.
So they can still go back and do that in the future. But yeah, we wanted to get them live right away.
There's a lot of perturbation when you do it live.
There definitely is. And we've got a big enough training room that we can keep them socially distanced and all that
Yep.
kind of stuff just
Yep.
fine. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. Well, Iain, thank you so much. And what's your plan for shaving the beard? Or are you going to keep it
When
for a long
I'm
term now?
legitimately out of isolation, because I'm still technically in isolation under
Okay.
doctor's orders, simply because of age. He wants me to be very diligent about isolation.
Yeah, you need to for your health.
Yeah, is the reason I'm doing it. So I have to be out of all of that, and what that date is, I'm not too sure, but at some stage I will revert back to what I used to be.
Awesome.
I probably won't do it before Hilton Head, because that's the first time I will have left my house overnight. Will be when I go to Hilton Head. So technically, I'll still consider myself in isolation and being very careful.
Yeah, and certainly bring your mask and
Oh yeah,
do all that stuff, and bring some extra hand sanitizer and stuff.
Yeah, and I wear gloves. Every time I leave the house, I'm wearing gloves as well.
That's a very smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Iain. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Okay, thanks, Craig. All the best. Look forward to seeing you then.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
bye for now.